Hey folks, this is Jesse Cope, back with another episode of the American Soul Podcast. Hope y'all are doing well, wherever y'all are, and whatever part of the day that you're in. I sure do appreciate y'all joining me and giving me a little bit of your time. For those of y'all that continue to share the podcast and to help it to grow, telling others about it, I'm incredibly grateful for that as well. I have two puppy dogs on the porch this morning, one kitty cat somewhere, I think, and that's about it so far. And I don't think we have anything else other than that summer is back again, still. But hopefully it comes and goes. Wake up one morning and it'll be nice and cool. Wake up the next day and the mosquitoes are trying to carry you away in your car. And it's 100 degrees outside. It'll come eventually. So we did recently uh, talked about on a podcast our founder's opinion of the need to read God's Word. And I had quite a few quotes that we didn't get to. And so we're just going to go back through a few of those. We'll see how long it takes. If we get a chance, we may go back to that first quote from the last episode. I think the first quote I read by Benjamin Rush. But we'll just see how far we get. I will go back and read the Bible verse that I'm fairly certain I started the last podcast off with was Deuteronomy 11:18 through 21. You shall therefore impress these words of mine on your heart and your soul, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontals on your forehead. You shall teach them to your sons, talking of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your sons may be multiplied on the land. Obviously, the instruction here is not only to teach ourselves, but our children. And we talked about this just a little bit, I think, last time. That, our founders are great leaders, a number of them. Talk about Lincoln. I mean, there's a long list. Washington, Adams, even Jefferson and Franklin, who were supposedly anti-Christian, according to the modern day left. At least that's the way it's presented often. Reagan would be another one. I'm assuming President Carter, although I'm definitely not trying to say that he was a great president, but even still, spent a good deal of time in the Word. We've had a lot of Grant. Anyway, the list is pretty lengthy and it goes well past presidents. The other thing, so personally, I wonder if we do that. And then I certainly can't imagine that, well, we obviously aren't as a nation doing that with our children. And it affects everything, you don't spend that time, that moral development, that character, lack of character affects those children individually. It affects their marriages. We don't teach them what it really means to be our sons, what it really means to be a man and a husband, what it means to love and cherish and nourish your spouse. We don't teach our wives, our daughters, or our daughters how to be mothers, women, ladies, and wives. What it really means to love their husbands, to respect them. What it means actually to submit to their husband, what it means, what their role is. And so then we end up with what we have now, which is a national divorce rate of 1 out of every 2 marriages. 50% of first marriages fail. And then it goes on to professional lives and friendships, etc. Anyway, let's start with another little quote. This is out of the same paper. This is from 1791, Dr. Benjamin Rush, A Defense of the Use of the Bible as a School Book. And if we have time, we'll go back to a first part about it. We've talked about it before, but I'm going to read a couple paragraphs here. There is a wonderful property in the memory which enables it in old age to recover the knowledge as it acquired in early life, after it had apparently forgotten for 40 or 50 years. Of how much consequence, then, must it be to fill the mind with that species of knowledge in childhood and youth which, when recalled in the decline of life, will support the soul under the infirmities of age and smooth the avenues of approaching death. The Bible is the only book which is capable of affording this support to old age, and it is for this reason that we find it resorted to with so much diligence and pleasure by such old people as have read it in early life. In contemplating the political institutions of the United States, I lament that we waste so much time and money in punishing crimes and take so little pains to prevent them. We profess to be Republicans, and yet we neglect the only means of establishing and perpetuating our Republican form of government, that is, the universal education of our youth in the principles of Christianity by means of the Bible. For this divine book, above all others, favors that equality among mankind, that respect for just laws, and all those sober and frugal virtues which constitute the soul of republicanism. We use that last paragraph. We've talked about it quite frequently and will continue to. We need to come back and talk about education again a little bit, always. One of the reasons we circle back, or to use an educational term today, we spiral back so often, is from the Marine Corps. It's muscle memory. Sadly, we do that with a lot of things that are really bad for our character, our conscience, our soul today. We get really bad muscle memory ingrained. You in the Marine Corps, one of the things our instructors told us often was really a lot of times the best shooters, or the shooters that became the best, were the ones that had very little experience prior to going in the Marine Corps. This is not universally true, folks. You're going to have some Marines out there listening to this that are going to be screaming at me right now. But what they meant is, so often we pick up bad habits as young men and women shooting. And so then the instructors have to untrain, break the bad habits, and then retrain the good habits. And well, this is true intellectually, spiritually, emotionally as well. And today our culture and our education are flooded with bad habits. We teach our children bad habits purposefully. When you look at the public school system, when you look at entertainment culture today, we're promoting things that hurt children across the board. And so one of the reasons we come back often to topics here on this podcast is because it's so important to create that good muscle memory. You hear a quote once, maybe you remember it, maybe you remember part of it, maybe you don't remember any of it. You hear it 5, 6, 7, 10, a dozen times, you start to know a little bit of it in the back of your head. I had an uncle that told me once, he was in advertising, and said that their kind of rule of thumb was, I think if you saw an advertisement, I want to say it was somewhere between 12 and 15 times, somewhere in there, that somewhere around that 12th or 15th time, that's when the ad actually finally kicked in and was successful, at least in the sense of getting you to pay attention to it. How much more important are these comments like Rush here, who was considered the father of public schools in America? And he's saying what? The most important thing, not even just something that we need to teach our children, the most important thing is to educate them in the Bible. And how comforting it is at the opposite end of the age spectrum to have this knowledge in the back of your head, to know that you put your faith in Jesus Christ, despite all your mistakes, despite all your fears, despite all your doubts, that you can put all your trust in Him and cling to Him alone. And that at the end of your life, you have eternity in heaven with God, eternal joy and happiness, no more tears, no more sorrow. Why would we deny that to our children? And Rush says here again that, Republican form of government, the only way to sustain it. And Rush is not unique here at all. Many of our founders and leaders have acknowledged this. We talked about a quote recently from Washington saying, if we don't have religion and morality, and he was talking about Christianity, folks, despite what the modern secularist atheists would like to pretend, agnostics, I guess, I don't know. If we don't have religion and morality as supports, we can have no political prosperity, no success of our government, of our state. I wonder where we got to last time. I'm trying to look through here and see. I think John Jay maybe was the last one that we read. No book in the world deserves to be so unceasingly studied and so profoundly meditated upon as the Bible. The first and almost the only book deserving such universal recommendation is the Bible. John Quincy Adams, President. Adams was also the one that talked about spending an hour or more in his Bible each day. And I wonder how many of us do the same. Washington had a habit too of spending his first and last moments in prayer in the Bible when you read about him. Robert Payne, signer of the Declaration. I believe the Bible to be the written word of God, and to contain in it the whole rule of faith and manners. William Johnson. By the way, folks, vast majority of this for the earlier podcast and this podcast is coming out of the Founder's Bible. You can find these quotes a lot of places. That's just where I happen to pull them from. Patriots Bible is another good place. The Avalon Project from Yale has a lot of these papers that have these quotes in them. Some of them you can just find online just by searching for the author's name. There we go. He couldn't stand it. One of our dogs is out in the woods barking, and the other one decided they needed to go investigate. Uh, America's God and Country Encyclopedia of Quotes is another great source. I just try and recommend these most podcasts because they are so important individually for your family. It's a book that needs to be, books that need to be passed on. Those three for sure need to be in every single classroom in the country, without doubt. William Samuel Johnson, signer of the Constitution. Remember that you are the redeemed of the Lord, that you are bought with a price, and even the inestimable price of the precious blood of the Son of God. Acquaint yourselves with him, to his word and holy ordinances. James Wilson, signer of both the Constitution and the Declaration. Our all-gracious Creator, Preserver, and Ruler has been pleased to discover and enforce his laws by a revelation given to us immediately and directly from himself. This revelation is contained in the Holy Scriptures, the Bible. Noah Webster, considered the schoolmaster of America, all of the miseries and evils which men suffer from, vice, crime, ambition, injustice, oppression, slavery, and war, proceed from them despising or neglecting the precepts contained in the Bible. I can't help, again, for some reason, John Jay, who was our first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Noah Webster, Schoolmaster of America, and Benjamin Rush, the father of public education, all make note in different forms of how important the Bible is, how important it is to elect Christian leaders. When you're talking about John Jay, with the other two, how important it is for the Bible to be the primary textbook, including Fisher Ames, by the way, who was the author of the First Amendment. All of these men that were there at the founding, that actually wrote or were part of these early documents, or the generation right after, or helped set up these institutions, talk about the Supreme Court, talk about public education, or at least push for them. And they're all saying the Bible's got to be center. God's got to be center. Jesus Christ has got to be center, not Muslim, Islam, not Buddhism, Hinduism, atheism, Mother Natureism, none of that stuff. Not secularism. God and Jesus Christ in the Bible. And yet somehow today we continue to allow ourselves to be told that that's not true. We continue to allow our children to be educated and told that that's not true, taught lies, and not taught the truth. It's a double-edged sword, or whatever you want to call it. Not only do we teach them lies, we teach them that the truth is a lie, or we don't even allow them to be taught the truth. So it's not like they're side by side. Unbelievable. James McHenry, signer of the Constitution. The Holy Scriptures, the Bible, can alone secure to society order and peace, and to our courts justice and constitutions of government purity, stability, and usefulness. Bibles are strong entrenchments. When they abound, men cannot pursue wicked courses, and at the same time enjoy quiet conscience. So, not only do we need them in our individual lives, our courts of justice, constitutions of government, right? That's public life, folks. Just in case, just throwing that out there. Our founders didn't just want the Bible for our personal lives. They did, because it's so important to your eternal soul, your eternal salvation. But they hammered home the point that it was important to our public lives, to the ability of our country to survive. We got one more, and we're going to have to go for today. This is John Adams, signer of the Declaration. Suppose a nation in some distant region should take the Bible for their only law book, and every member should relegate his conduct by the precepts there exhibited. What a utopia, what a paradise would this region be. The Bible is the best book in the world. We're not perfect, folks. None of us are. Jesus Christ was the only one who is the Son of God. Our country's not perfect. But the times when we're not perfect are the times we've strayed away from God and the Bible, and that His peace and safety and security and laws and rules for conduct in every facet. We want our lives, we want that peace, that security. It doesn't mean our lives are going to be easy. It doesn't mean there won't be fights and wars. It doesn't mean that we won't have moments of doubt and fear. But if we want that peace at the end, that strength and stability, even the possibility of, we have got to get back to the Bible being a priority in our individual lives each day, more than phones or TV or sports or anything else, in our marriages, in our public life, in our communities, in our schools. It's got to be. God bless y'all. God bless your families. God bless America. We'll talk to y'all again real soon, folks. Looking forward to it.